Okay, in this video we will talk about this Splunk Add-on Builder app. Okay, so as the name suggested, like this app has been heavily used to create the add-ons. That's the main purpose of this particular app. Now, apart from that, it supports other functionalities as well, like you can manage some source types, you can make your app sim compatible, so those stuff, right? So but mainly this app has been used to create the add-ons, basically technology add-ons in Splunk. So technology add-ons are basically, it serves certain purposes, like if you want to, let's say, get some data from some REST API or similar stuff, right? So we use the technology add-on, and if you see in Splunk base, there are a lot of technology add-ons available for interacting with different kinds of systems, right? For to get the data from different kinds of system, right? So this app actually makes our life easier. When, if you remember, for our TMDB app, we created a scripted input right over there, so which basically we created a this Python script over there, right? And then we fetch some data from this upcoming movie details from this TMDB website, right? Now today what we'll do is we will try to do similar kind of stuff using technology add-on, this particular add-on builder as well. We'll create a simple add-on over there and try to see how it makes our life easier and what are the details about that one. Okay, now before we proceed, so we will first try to see how we can install it and what are the limitations of it. Okay, now this particular add-on is solely recommended to use for your local machine. Okay, so if you use on searched or indexers, it is not recommended at all. So the idea is to basically you install it in your local system or in your local host, then develop the add-on, package it, then push it to the production system so that it will work over there. Okay, so installation wise it is very easy. You just need to download this tar file and then come up over here. Okay, and I'll just do the installation from a file. So I already downloaded that version over here. Now if you are using Splunk 8, if you see it over here, you need to download this version 3.0.1 because it will be Python 3 supported. But if you are using older version of Splunk, maybe you need to download this 2.2.0 version over there. Okay, so that's the thing you have to remember. Now after it installed, it will ask you for the restart, so we will do a restart over here. We'll come back after some Splunk restart completed. Okay, our Splunk has been restarted, so let's log in over there. So we'll go to Splunk home. Now over here, if you see, this is the add-on builder app, right? So I'll click it over here. And the first thing is the Splunk add-on builder app. It collects some public information from your system. So if you want to share with them, you need to click on OK. Otherwise, you need to click on no, maybe later. Okay. Now this is the initial interface it is having over here, and if you see, you can have either card view or table view. So as for your need, you can do that one. Okay, now this add-on builder app supports two kind of functionalities where you can create a new add-on using this particular app. Those will be shown up over here because there is a 2 tab over here. If you see it, created with add-on builder, and here you can edit other apps and add-ons as well over here using this particular app. So this will be used for migration purpose as well. So those which are not created using this add-on builder app will be listed over here. Okay, now today's demo we will try to use this one as well. So we will try to create an add-on using this particular app only. So that's the thing we wanted to achieve today, right? So I'll just click on this new add-on. Okay, now the add-on name you have to give. So as we will be working on that TMDB app, right? So I'll just give TF for technology add-on, then I'll just give TMDB. So that's the add-on name over here, and if you see it over here, it assigns a folder name over here which you can edit as well. So this basically creates a new app. over here. Okay, I'll show you that behind the scene what is going on over here. You can give the author name, you can give some meaningful description over here as well. Okay, and you can either make it visible or non-visible. So generally technology add-ons are not visible, but for our demo purpose I will make it visible so that we can see what's going on. Okay, so here you can upload an icon as well. So as we are working on TMDB app, so I will just upload the TMDB app icon over here. Okay, now if you do not know about the TMDB app, maybe I'll be sharing that app link over here so that you can refer it. So static, so basically it needs that 72 into 72, this bigger icon over here. So I'll click on open. Okay, you can choose the theme color over here as well. I'll choose this one. So theme color I'll show you once this app will be created. So that app menu option color will be this one. Okay, so I'll just click on create. So basically here it will show you now the main window over here. Okay, so for your add-on, so if you see it, your add-on name is showing up over here. So basically in your this is the configurations related to your add-on over here. And if you see it over here, there are a lot of options, like you can configure the data collection, you can manage source type, you can extract field, you can map to data models, you can create alert actions, you can validate and package as well. So that's all the different steps it having it. So today what we'll do is, today we will see an example of how to configure the data collection. Okay, and we will definitely see other options as well in future videos. We'll go slow. So to configure the data collection means, as the name suggesting, it's just like you are basically telling this add-on how to collect the data, right? So basically this generally when we create a technology add-on, we collect the data for specific sources, right? So here we will be collecting data from our this movie database, right? So movie database, there are a lot of APIs, and if you remember when I discussed about the TMDB scripted input, so we basically queried this particular endpoint, upcoming movies, which basically tells you like within next 2 to 3 months what are the different releases or movies are coming up. Okay, and it can segregate between language and region wise as well. So this one we will try to call from our add-on. Okay, so we will go over here, add-on builder main flow, and we will configure the data collection over here. Okay, so we'll create a new input over here. Now there are a couple of options. So today we'll only concentrate on the REST API part. Then maybe in future videos we'll see the Python code part. Even this would be the similar stuff, like either you can run a shell command or you can run a Python code to get the data over there. Okay, so we will see the REST API part now. So I'll be clicking on over here. Now here you can give a source type name. I'll just give TMDB. Okay, now input display name. So this is important. So why this is needed over here? It's needed because if I just go over here, go to settings and go to data inputs. Okay, so your input will be shown up over here. As you have seen, for scripted input we went inside the scripts and then we created a new input over there, right? Similarly for TCP UDP, you create it shows up in the main screen, in the data input screen, right? So similarly for other by default out of the box inputs, your technology add-on inputs also shown up over here, will be shown up over here. So the name I'll be giving TMDB underscore inputs. That means there will be an option over here somewhere called TMDB underscore input, and you can create new inputs from there. Okay, and then the input name. So this is the fine, and you can give some description as well over here. You can give the data collection interval as well. I'll just give 60 seconds over here. Okay, then this is the data inputs properties. Now if you see it over here, there are 3 tabs, right? Data input properties, data input parameters. So here you basically control of the user defined options. Okay, now think about it, like when we call a REST API, right? So there are a lot of query parameters we send it to the REST API. For an example, the this slash movie slash upcoming, it requires couple of stuff. If you see it over here, it must require an API key, right? Which you can get it from by just you can just register over here and get an API key. Okay, there are optional parameter as well. You can provide some language input, you can provide the page number, because by default it's only just give the first page details. If you want to do it for all the movies, you need to basically give other page number over here as well, and you can give some region name over here as well, right? So among this query parameters, some of it you may want to get it from the end user. Okay, and some of it you may want to pass it as a default value over there. So those things are called data input parameters over here. Okay, now, so as API key is the main one, so we will start with this one. Okay, API key. So we will just give, what we will do is, as it is a simple text box, you can create your password as well. We'll discuss about user ID and password if you want to do it for the REST API later part of this video. So I'll just say API key over here, right? So internal name, I'll just give API underscore key. Now default display text, I'll just give please provide API key over here. Okay, some default value you can give as well, and you can also make it as required or not, as without API key we won't be able to call the REST endpoint, so we will make it required over here. Okay, so we just configured a single input, data inputs over here. Okay, now this, when user will be, you will be creating the inputs for your add-on, right? So they have to provide this API key over here. Now I'll be clicking on next. Now over here, if you see it, like here you can, okay, before I click, I'll just go back somewhere over here. I need to discuss this third one as well over here. Now add-on setup parameters. Now here you basically take the global informations about your add-on. Let's say when you want to call and REST endpoints, right? Maybe you want to save some kind of authentication details over here, like user ID and password, those stuff. As you have seen it over here, this API keys also comes as a password kind of stuff, but currently we did it as a data input parameter. In latter part of this video, I'll show you how to access this part as well over here. I can set it up, the API key, using a add-on setup parameters as well. Okay, so basically the thumb rule is like the informations which will be required for your add-on, which is required globally, that means everywhere you will be using it, like authentication and those stuff, you will be basically store it as add-on setup parameters, and other input parameters which basically user needs to give as a part of REST API call, that you will be storing up over here. Okay, as I have only the API key, so I am just giving an example with the API key only everywhere. So I'll just clicking on next. So here we will be giving the URL, REST API URL over here, right? So if I just go over here, so this is the URL, right? So HTTPS movies upcoming, correct? So I'll just paste it over here, and the REST method is get, because I am getting something. Now REST URL parameters, right? So one of the required parameter over here is the API key, right? So that I have to set it up over here. Okay, and what could be its value? Its value will be the one we just set it up as a part of data input parameters, right? So that means the value of this particular variable. Now how to access this variable value? This is how you access $, then curly bracket start, the name of this particular settings, okay, whatever you have given it over there, and curly bracket end. So this is how you access it over there. Okay, now if you have some kind of header related stuff, you can set it up over here. As I do not have anything, so I'll not setting up over here. Okay, now this event extraction settings and checkpoint settings, we will see it later. Okay, first we'll try to see whether this settings is working or not. So to test it out, what you need to do, you need to provide an API key, because this is the mandatory one, right? Because if I just wanted to click on test over here, if you see, it is complaining that you have not provided this API key parameter, which I'll give it from my own API key. Okay, so I'll just give it over here, then test it out. Okay, so if you see it shows some output like preparing the environment, and if you see it over here, it got the result from that API over here, right? Now if I do not do any other settings, this data, I am expecting that it will be indexed to Splunk, right? So let us try to see how it is indexing into Splunk. Then maybe we will try to see some other configurations which will change the behavior of this output. Okay, so what we'll do is we will save it. Okay, we'll wait for save to happen. We will finish it. Okay, so once finish is done, so one thing happened over here. If I just go to your Splunk home page over here, okay, so previously we had that Splunk Add-on Builder app installed over there, right? Now you will see an extra app will be shown up over here called TA-TMDB. Okay, and if you see it over here, we configured the theme as orange color, right? So this is the theme I was talking about over here. Okay, so this is the app basically you will be deploying to your production system over here. Okay, so here people can create new inputs and those stuff. Now by creating this input, before creating this input, let us see whether this is showing up over here or not. So we'll go to settings, data inputs, the same page, and if you see it over here, your TMDB underscore input is showing up over here, right? So either you can create a new input from here, and if I just click on add new input over here, so there was only one parameter we are expecting over there, right? So you can give a new input name and the API key over there, right? So those stuff, so that's the way. Like if you see it over here, when we create a new input, right? Let's say for TCP UDP, we need to give a lot of information like the port number, the source name, or other stuff, right? So similar kind of details we basically created using the add-on builder over here for TMDB underscore input. So it requires the input name as well as the API key over here. Okay, so input name and the API key over here. Now to use this add-on, so basically we have to create an input that will basically index into Splunk over here, right? So before that, let me see if my main index has some data or not. So I'll just try to delete it so that we'll start from fresh. Okay, so I'll be indexing into my main index only. So I'll just do for all time. So we have some events over here. I'll just delete it. Okay, so now we do not have anything in my main index. Okay, so as I told, you can either create input from here, from the settings data input page, or you can create the input directly from this add-on builder. So from this app itself, the new app itself, right? This is the new input we just created using this add-on builder. So I'll just click on create new input. It will ask you for similar kind of information. So let's say test TMDB input. Okay, interval I'll say 60, index as I said main, and the API key over here, right? So I'll just copy the API key, paste it over here. So that's my input. So it will basically, this stage is basically creating a inputs.conf over here, not this stage over here. It's using this add-on builder. Basically you are creating the app which has the capability of calling a REST API endpoint using some details and getting the data. So that new app, you have to basically it's a new input over here. You creating a new input type over here. So input you have to create. So whenever you are creating a new input from this screen or from that add-on screen over here, it will create a new inputs.conf that will basically fetch the data or basically index the data in our main index over here, or whatever index you are basically setting up over there. So let's try to see if we have some data or not. Now if you see it over here, one strange thing happening, right? We just having a single data, even though when we tested the add-on there were a lot of data it was showing up, right? Now what happened over here? And if you just see it, the results one, this each and every movie is basically compiled together and it created a single event over here. So that means somewhere I have to tell Splunk how to break the events, right? So that thing we will see it now. So for that I will just disable it now for this one, okay, so that it will not index every time. So we'll go to our TMDB TMDB1, and if you see it, whenever you already configure the data collection, so data inputs, it will show up, it will basically give you the count over here. So you can click it over here, okay, so that's your input, and it will show you the how many events it collected as well. So I think it already indexed another one with the similar kind of information. Yes, if you see it over here, okay. So now I will do the edit over here. So this stuff I will not change now, because now we will concentrate on how we can break the event. So for that, these settings are important, event extraction settings, okay. So before that, let's test it out so that I will see the data, how it is creating all the movie informations over here, okay. Now this is what it is saying. If the response payload is an array, enter the JSON path to that array in the payload to use for the breaking of the data into the individual event, okay. So I have to tell Splunk, if you see it over here, this results, right? So this results is basically array of movies over here. So I have to tell Splunk how to find this results key, okay, in this whole output over here. So there are a lot of formats over here, okay. So the base root element, you can mention it as dollar, okay. And if I just say dollar dot results, okay, if you see it, it is already making it as a yellow color. So that means it is able to identify the results portion of the data over here. If you see it over here, it only highlighted the result portion, not the other part over here, okay. So in that way I can tell Splunk only index the results portion. So as it is a JSON array, now it will break the individual movies as a separate events. We'll see that one, but before that, just let us try to see the other context or other format options over here as well, okay. Now let's say if you want to access this particular key value pair over here, okay, let's say I want to access the release date. So how I will do that? So as my root element dot results dot release underscore date, okay. Now as you see, it is not highlighting because results is an array. So if I just say results 0, that means the first results release date. So it is highlighting the first result release date. Similarly, you can do it from the last result as well. So if I just give -1 over there, so it will start from the last result over there, okay. Now if you want to highlight, or if you want to get all the release date for all the results over here, what we'll do, we'll give a wildcard character called star over here. So now if you see it over here, it is highlighting all the release date over here, okay. Now here you can also give in this format as well, like result star then release date. This is also possible, release date. So this is also another syntax over here, so nothing fancy over there. This is another syntax, but I prefer this dot one, okay, dot release date. So as we are only will be basically indexing full movie information, so that part we will not do it. Now there is another way to access release date, that let me show you that one. This is called like deep parsing or deep finding. So if you give double dot and then give some field name, release date, it should be able to find that one. It is basically searching that one for release date deep through this tree structure and then finding it out. So this is also possible. Okay, so as we are only bothering about results for now, so we will just give dollar dot results, so this way. Okay, so we will save it. So hopefully by this time it should create the separate index for separate event for separate movie. It will not club it together. Okay, so we will finish it. We will delete this two event from our main index so that we can see what's going on over there. Okay, so it's finished. So inputs we already have created, so I'll just enable it. Okay, so we will wait for this status to change to enabled. So now let us try to see how it is indexing into Splunk. So let us wait for a minute. So let us try to see whether it has pushed something or not. If you see it over here, it is now creating separate events for separate movies over here. Okay, so that's the concept behind that event structure. So I'll just disable it so that it will not do anything else over there. Okay, so we saw how to break events using this particular add-on builder over here, right? So let us try to go over there and see what are the other stuff we can cover. Checkpointing settings, we will do it now. Okay, then we will move it to some other setup parameters over there. Now as you have seen it over here, I was disabling this input, right? Because if I just kept it open every 60 seconds, it will run that script and it would have basically indexed the same data again and again, right? As it has done in my previous one as well. When it was clubbing together, it created two events over there, right? Because there is no checkpointing features over there. We implemented that. Okay, so currently it has 20 events. That means for this first page, if I just go over here, for this first page of this particular endpoint, because this endpoint supports the pagination, so to give an example, we are just taking the data from the first page itself. Okay, so but if you remember from the scripted input I created over there, we just loop through for different pages, and if you see it over here, and then we were basically taking the data for all the pages, but here we are just doing a simple call to this REST API and getting the data for the page one. Okay, now to set up checkpointing, let's click on this one. Okay, so by default checkpointing is disabled, so I'll just enable the checkpointing now. Okay, now checkpointing has a lot of parameters over here. So before I do the checkpointing, let's first see the data over here. It will be easier to understand what's going on. Okay, now if you see, to enable checkpointing, we need couple of stuff. Here you can checkpoint by a field name. So generally it's a date field, because your REST API will always give you the incremental data, because when it will pull the data from the REST API, so it will do something like this one: fetch those events which are greater than this date. So this kind of logic. So in those cases, basically, if I just go to the documentation of this add-on, when you want to enable the checkpointing, right, your REST API should do the following. So this is, you have to make sure, allow you to sort the fields by one you want to use for checkpointing. Okay, query the data by the checkpointing fields starting with the initial checkpoint value. Allow timestamps to increment at least as small as the collection interval. Okay, so this stuff you need to take care of if you are dealing with your custom REST API endpoints, but otherwise normal like public REST API endpoints handle this kind of stuff. Okay, now parameter name. So today for our demo, what we'll do is we'll apply the checkpointing based on our release date. Okay, so we'll say the checkpointing field name. Here you have to give basically a field name on which field you want to add the checkpointing. Okay, so I'll give the release date. Now here I have to tell Splunk how to find the release date, as I already show you over there. I'll just give this format, release date. Okay, if you see it, it is highlighting properly. Okay, and initial value, that means from which date it will start. So I'll give some older date, let's say 1990 01 01. Okay, so and you have to give the response and request timestamp format as well. So here the timestamp format is %y, m and d, right? So this is, I will give %capital Y because we have 4-year digits, right? Then %m, then %d, right? So similar stuff as this is same for me, right, for response and request, but if it is different for you, you have to give those proper formats over here as well. Okay, so those things I have given. So we basically created the checkpointing for this particular input over here. So that means if I just now save it, okay, and enable this input, it should not reindex those 20 records. If it is finding any record, any release date which is basically not there over here, basically the most greater release date over here, if it is finding some new release date, then only it will index that data, otherwise it won't. So as I am currently I think this particular REST endpoint refreshes, I think every day or something like that. So I am hoping we will always get similar kind of records. That means we see similar set of records over here. That means we will still not index any new data over here. I'm expecting that, but if it is coming up, it may index it, but it will not be 20, definitely not be 20 over here. Okay, so let us try to do that one. I will just finish it. Okay, so now before we see like whether data is getting indexed or not, as we have changed the checkpointing settings over there, right? So what I'll do is I will first delete this particular input, because of checkpointing it will ask you for another input called that initial value of the checkpointing. Okay, so that we need to provide over here. So I'll just create a new input. I'll just give test tmdb input over here. Okay, test tmdb input, and then interval I'll just say 60, index as I did previously, main API key I'll just provide the API key from here. Okay, this one, and if you see it is asking for release date, the initial release date. So I'll just say 1990 01 01. Okay, and checkpointing type, it will be auto over here. Now add. So this will basically actually do the checkpointing over here. Okay, so it indexed another set of 20 records because we have given, if I just go over here in the add-on data inputs, and if I just go to edit, next page, edit, and if I just go to next page, so over here we have given the checkpoint initial value as 1990. So that's why it found all the page one movies which are greater than release date of 1990. So that's why it indexes it again, but I don't think after it index it will not anyhow further index it, because anyhow we already 1 minute is over. It already ran that input job, but it will not do that. Okay, so it all depends on the starting value you are giving it over here, the initial value over here. Okay, so in production scenario, what will happen when we'll set up that particular input, right? So you will be giving this initial value, then only your input will start indexing the data, right? As we already have 20 records, 20 events in our event, right? So that's why it is showing up 40, because another 20 indexed because of this settings only. Okay, so hopefully this idea is clear. So now what will happen is, we understood how this event extraction setting works, we understood how checkpointing setting works. Okay, now over here, if you see it, for your REST endpoint, if you want to give user ID and password, okay, it may happen, right? If you have basic authentication and those stuff, then it is advisable that you do it as a setup parameter in your add-on. Okay, now there are two ways you can do it. Now I'll show you the way. The first thing we will do is this API one, this API key, right? We will move it to as a setup parameter first. Okay, then while doing that one, we will see how we can add that user ID, user credentials over there as well. Okay, so we will go back over here to the initial page. From the data inputs parameter, we will remove this one. Okay, now we will go to setup parameters. Over here, if you want to have user ID and password, it is advisable that you add a global account over here, and this settings will be automatically keep it over here. Splunk will automatically take it over here when we'll see in the next page over there. Okay, let us see that one. Then if I just go to next page and go to this add-on setup parameters, if you see as username and password is showing up over here because of that adding of that global option over here. Okay, okay, and the way you will be accessing its value is, if I just go to the add-on builder documentation. So this is the way you will be accessing, like the similar way we access the other stuff, dollar, then curly bracket start, then global underscore account dot username, and then global underscore account dot password. This is how you will be accessing these values. Okay, now we will not do it over here. Okay, we will again go back from the inputs parameter. We will remove that one. Now we are planning to use API key as our setup parameter, right? So we will uncheck that. Now what we'll do is we will take a text over here. Okay, and we will say API key over here. Okay, now we are taking API key as a setup parameter over here. Okay, now default display text, similar way, please provide API key, and it is a required one, right? So we will go to next. Now if you see in the data inputs parameter, it is not showing up anything over here. Our event extraction and checkpointing settings will be unchanged. Okay, now if you see it over here, the request URL parameter is API key over here, and previously we were giving $API key, but this is, we cannot give it now because this is the way of writing it, accessing the API key when we have our inputs, when we are defining API key as a part of input parameters. Okay, but when we define API key as a part of setup parameters, so there you need to access it in different way. So you need to access it in as a additional parameter. So if I just go it over here, so this is how you will be accessing it: dollar, then curly bracket start, underscore settings dot additional parameters dot API token. Okay, so in our case it will be an API key over there, right? So what we'll do is we will do something like this one. Okay, and our field name is API underscore key over there, right? So this will be our current settings now. This is how we will be accessing this particular endpoint using API key now. So to test it out, what we'll do is we'll give the API key values over here. Okay, so it should work as well now. Previously we did the API key as a part of input parameter, but now we are giving it as a setup parameter, and if you see, it is able to fetch the events from that particular endpoint over here, right? So that means it works over here. So you have to remember these things, right? When you define a particular thing as a input parameter, so then you can access it something like dollar curly bracket the parameter name. Okay, when you access it as a setup parameter, if it is not a global parameter, that means that user ID and password, if you see, it is coming up under this additional parameter, right? So that's why we are accessing it something like this one, underscore settings dot additional parameters, then the parameter name over here. Okay, that's the difference. Now it should behave in the same way. Behavior wise, it will not be any change over there, as we have checkpointing, so it will not index any data over here. Okay, but the concept we need to understand over here. Okay, hopefully we are able to grasp it. So this is the all the different ways and different functionality of getting the data using from a REST endpoints using a Splunk add-on builder add-on. Okay, so essentially what we did, if we just try to summarize it, we just build the add-on using this add-on builder. Okay, and that add-on is this guy over here, TA_TMDB. If you see, it created a new app over here, right? Now in that add-on, you can create a new input, which will basically get the data from the REST API endpoints and indexing to main index, whatever index we are configuring over here. This step is important because this is the step where it will index the data. Otherwise, if you just create the add-on in this add-on builder app, it will never index the data. It will show you the data over here in this particular test window, but it will not index the data in your index over there. Okay, now in the next video we may talk about the how to get the data using a script over there, because if you see, like, we just access the page 1, which is not good in this scenario, right? Because we need to have data for all the pages. Okay, but if you're accessing some REST API endpoints which is giving all the data, then this approach is perfectly fine. Okay, but in this current approach, this movie database, it is having a pagination, so that means we'll try to fix it using a script stuff. Okay, so hopefully this video is helpful. See you in next video.